Hey there, everybody. I think we made it right at 6 o'clock. I'm not sure. My phone says it's right at 6 o'clock. Oh, we're going to turn the audio down here. Click mute. Okay, let's see. Who all do we have going in here? James Bergeron, how are you doing? Big Red, how are you? Justin Heil from Vancouver, Washington. J. Chris Beck, how are you doing? West Coast Kenny, how are you doing? Gerald LaRue says hello, Jimmy, from a fellow crane operator. Hello, Gerald. And when I just started this live stream, a notification popped up that said Hangouts on Air was going away August 1st. So I think they're going to change it to YouTube webcam or something. I don't know. Videos by Al. How are you doing? Tommy Vincent, G4 Outdoors, Cut and Clean. Cut and Clean, I do not have your trim done yet. Patrick Murphy, Andy B, how are you doing? Patrick Murphy said just got his NCCO and rigger card was a good place to start to look for a job. If you don't have any crane experience, but you got your crane certs, then you probably better start with like a crane rental company. Bella Stevens, how are you doing, Bella? Cecil McKinley, hello. Andy B, how are you doing tonight? Cut and Clean asked if I got his trim done yet. So I've got his trim pump for his, I don't know if it's a 50 or a 60 horse Mercury outboard, taken apart on my workbench. The hydraulic cylinder portion of it actually broke. So I've recorded some footage of it. I'm having difficulty finding some parts. So at some point, I will get it put back together. Dickard with Dave. How are you doing, Dave? Also, want to thank everybody for the birthday wishes and the belated birthday wishes. That happened, what is today? Today's the 7th. Okay, so 2 days ago. Scott Becker, how are you doing, Scott? Yep, 2 days ago, I hit the old 42. Oh, Cut and Clean says, no worries, man. Thanks for doing it. Hopefully you're still able to run your boat. You should be able to by pinning that motor in place and then just unpinning it and pinning it up when you're on the trailer. Patrick Murphy asked why a rental company over, let's say, a normal heavy construction company. With rental, you will be exposed to many different scenarios, so it will round you out a lot faster. So you're setting up an uneven terrain. You're going to be in parking lots. You're going to be blocking roads. Lots of different scenarios where you're looking for overhead obstructions and power lines and stuff in the ground. So taxi crane service or crane rental is probably some of the most challenging because of all the different stuff that you face, and you have to think on your feet. So ultimately it'll make you a better crane operator. Digging okay. How are you doing, Frank? Scott Becker says I'm just a baby. I want to welcome everybody that's new to the channel. I think we've picked up, about 100 subscribers in the last week. So if any of you all are watching, welcome to the channel. And you guys won't hear me say, hey, Lawn Commander, how are you doing? Haven't seen you for a while. But you won't hear me reference this channel as my channel on here because I've said it before in some other live streams. I want this to be your guys' channel. Everybody included. Everybody has input on it. Naturally, I can only record what I can record, but I want this to be everybody's channel. So Anthony Ray says, happy belated. Thanks for that. John Warren, how you doing, John? And John actually made it to the area a few weeks ago, and we actually got a chance to go to dinner together. Andy B, the water has gone down some. It's still at flood stage or above flood stage. I think it's at moderate flood stage or in moderate flood stage. But that could change with one crazy rainfall. So those flood videos have been pretty popular. I don't know if it's just from people searching for it or if it's from everybody sharing to each other. I don't know what's driving that, but Those have been pretty popular. Jason Culp, how are you doing? Andrew Baird, have you ever thought of using a 360 camera? I've thought of a 360 camera, and if I did one, I would probably do it out on the tip of the boom. A 360 camera in the cab, you guys, I mean, you wouldn't see much, but and they get mixed reviews on YouTube. Nerm, how are you doing, Nerm? Patrick Murphy asks, what is a better certification, lattice or tower? It depends on how much you want to work and if you're afraid of heights. And I mean, really, it depends on where you're located. Where I'm located, tower wouldn't do me a lot of good. We don't have a lot of tower cranes in the area, just a handful of them. And that's Kansas City, and within a couple hours each direction of Kansas City. So those cranes are typically already manned. But if you're in a bigger city, bigger area, then you would probably do well with a tower crane if you don't mind being up there. I've just got my hydro. I don't even have lattice boom certification because I work for a company that we only own one lattice boom crane, and everybody that knows me on here knows I'm not going to run it. So I've just got hydro. Woofy W, how are you doing, Woofy W? So that 360 stuff gives me major headaches. Andy B, I thought that house was going to be 3 pieces. I thought it was too. And I know that video was long, but I was trying to keep it somewhat all put together to where you guys could see some of the stuff that we deal with on a daily basis. On a lot of my other videos or my older footage, I would edit the wait times out, and I would edit out all those cuts from when we were picking it and then it fractures and we were setting it back down and re-rigging. Typically, I would edit all that out, but I left it in so you guys could actually see. It takes a great deal of patience to sit in the seat of a crane some days. Patrick Murphy asks, what do you think of IUOE? I am a member of IUOE Local 101, and I wouldn't have it any other way. That's not to say that I don't understand that there's other companies out there that can't be union, or there needs to be both in society. There needs to be union, non-union, and all that. And I don't really want to get into all the politics of that on the channel. But for my circumstance, I would not change my affiliation with IUOE. So hopefully that partially answers your question. Doug with Lakeside Ranch is in the house. How are you doing, Doug? MSL Logging, how are you? So, also, if you guys could real quick, I'm watching 2 screens here. So I've got Hangouts on the left side, and then I've got it playing on the YouTube channel on the right side, and it looks really blurry. Is it coming through okay on your guys' end? And also, I've been monkeying around with lighting a little bit. I don't know if you guys can see any difference or no difference, whatever. Patrick Murphy said, can you explain the apprenticeship? The apprenticeship, you have to apply to it. A lot of the apprenticeships, or some of them are different, but you have to apply to it. And then there's classroom instruction along with on-the-job training. So typically it takes about 4 years to get through it, and you are going to learn a whole bunch of information throughout your apprenticeship. Let's see. Cecil McKinley, how are you? Says local 400 there. John Warren, when I heard that house pop, I thought it was done for. I thought we were going to turn the old house into a taco. Memo 1133 says, I have a hypothetical question. Dream crane to operate could be anything. I really, really, really want to see the Tadano ATF 600-8 in person. And I would love to get in the seat of one when they roll it out. So I don't know. Rumor has it that when one gets to the country, I will jump on a plane and go get some footage of it wherever it ends up. Scott Becker says just a little blurry on his end. MSL says, hey, Jimmy Traco messed up again and did what you said about the relief valves, cleaned all them. Last one had blood O-ring, fixed it, works great. If you ever get into a situation that you want to pick my brain, feel free. You've got my phone number, MSL. Give me a call. I will do whatever I can to help you get through it. And also, MSL, if I can't give you an answer on something, I've got connections to a lot of places, a lot of people that I don't have a problem calling someone and picking their brain on your behalf to try to get you going. So, Patrick Murphy, what's classroom time like? Is it hard or is it Barney style? It's not hard if you pay attention, and it's not hard if you are driven to get through it. So, if you're one of those people who wants to sit in the back of the class and try to absorb everything like a sponge while you're taking a nap and they're just talking around you, you're probably not going to pick up a lot of it. But if you're really driven and are willing to learn, it's not anything anybody couldn't handle. Jake Respect, fixed my Cub Cadet today. I feel like a champion. I see some of your pictures on Facebook, Chris. I mean, you've got some repair stuff there working on your motorcycle. Andy B, got anything crazy coming up? I don't know. I know tomorrow I've got to go load that 46,000 pound transformer. I got to go load it out. So we're going to head back over to Chillicothe in the morning. And actually it's the second transformer that I picked, but the small one that came out of that second substation that I set off to the side, we got to roll over there and snag it and throw it on a truck. Tim McCardle, got an old Grove TM180. I'd like to replace the cable. Any idea of a good place to get that? Half-inch, I believe. Thanks. You can get that from like Wireco, or I'm not sure where you're located, but most major cities have a wire rope distributor in them, and you just got to figure out what rope's on it or what it calls for, and call your local wire rope distributor, and they can get you fixed up. Claude says, hi, how are you doing? Andrew Baird, do you need a license for a small crane on a truck less than 5 tons? It's my understanding that the crane certification requirement now covers anything with a capacity of more than 2,000 pounds, even a mechanic's truck crane. MSL Logan just built a motocross track on our property. Man, it's sweet. I'm going to be kind of down in your vicinity. Coming up in a few weeks, I'm heading to Florida. Going to road trip, so and I'm driving it. So I'm heading across Missouri and down through Indiana, Illinois and Indiana. Over, I think first stop is Evansville. Second stop's Chattanooga, which that's a short run, but we want to check some stuff out around Chattanooga. Third stop's going to be New Smyrna Beach. And then we're going to spend a few days there and start driving back. Claude, do I have a truck? I have like a pickup truck. I mean, my daily driver is a 2014 Ram 2500 with a Cummins. Let's see. Jeff Kramer, can you tell how you feel about lifting a basket? I don't like it, but have to do it from time to time. A lot of responsibility. And will you ever do a video on it? I lift baskets fairly frequently because we get in, we have customers get in positions that can't reach stuff any other way. I don't mind it because I mean, if you're one of those people that's very detail oriented anyway, it's typically not an issue. But I don't mind flying a basket, and the reason being is you're already cutting your chart down to 50%, and most of the time I'm in that Tadano that if I've got a basket on, I'm good for like 25 or 30,000 pounds because I'm pretty much going to be straight up, or I mean out a little bit. But with a bigger crane, flying a basket's not as much of an issue. Now I wish OSHA would revisit their standard on the man basket work because they have it listed that it's an absolute last resort. Well, technically, a person could do anything they needed to do to not use a crane. So, I mean, you could have, say you're working on a church steeple that's like Notre Dame where it's 500 feet tall. You could scaffold that. Technically, you could build scaffold to the top of Mount Everest. Now, to what degree do you have to make the man basket your last resort? Now, I've operated boom lifts. I've worked on boom lifts. I've been up in them. I've been up 150 feet in a boom lift. I would much rather be 300 feet in a man basket that's rated for 20,000 pounds as opposed to 150 feet in a man basket that's rated for 500 or 1,000. Let's see. Sean's Lawn Service. So we have a local crane and rigging company here in South Mississippi. They have a Liebherr LTM 1100 or 1200 series and LTM 1300. A few years ago, they did bridge girder picks. They had booms off the side. Now, sometimes they'll have to do booms off the side depending on the position that the bridge is in and where they can set the cranes up. So job sites dictate crane position a lot of times. Andrew Baird, I have not worked with Jones Brothers Trucking. Okay, so Sean asked of the LTM, what's the purpose of that? Like I said, job sites dictate crane setup. Claude, Florida is on Canada, right? Florida is southeast United States. Jake Risbeck says, yes, thank you. I try to take good care of my baby. Bought it new in 2011. It's a 2009, had 9 miles on it. MSL take a detour into North Carolina. Jim Harris says, have you seen the Liebherr crane lifting 20 tons over 800 feet in the air? I have not, but that would be nerve-wracking. Of course, I mean, all that stuff is relevant to the size of the machine. Scott H. I don't get into politics on my channel, buddy. Sorry. Patrick Murphy, what are the physical demands in the union? I see that you have to pass a physical for the pre-apprentice at local 926. I have a hurt back from Iraq, and I'm 80% in the VA. Would they skip me off? They would not skip you off. You go in there and tell them what you got going on. And one thing you'll figure out about unions, they're very supportive of our veterans and those in our military. So they would not write you off. Just tell them what your limitations are, and they'll work with you. David Parker says, being a crane operator has weight lost some value. What is a heavy load to me? A heavy load is anything that approaches the maximum capacity of the crane. So if I'm in a 4-ton crane and I'm picking up 3.5 tons, that's heavy. If I'm in that 200-ton crane and I'm picking up something that, say I'm set up and I'm good for 130,000 pounds and it weighs 129, that's heavy. So it's all relevant to the size of the machine. Carlo, and I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name, so I'm not even going to try it. But he says, who do you have your certification through, NCCCO or CIC? I have mine through the OECP, which is the Operating Engineer Certification Program. And I do that because it's free to me. Andy B says, can you pick more straight up or out a bit? The steeper the boom angle, the more capacity you have. So the closer you can keep the load to the center of the rotation, the more capacity you have. MSL Logging's just got to go, pal. Later, everybody. Hey, take care, MSL. If I can help you with anything, by all means, make my phone ring. I'll do my best. Sean's Lawn Service. They had crane parallel on the highway. And they had looked like support beams attaching to the main. Okay, so they may have had like a super lift or like a Y attachment on the back of the boom. I'm not sure. I'd have to see pictures of it to see what they had going on. It says bridge beams are about 80 feet long. Baba Bong, how are you doing? Crane up, Mike. If you drive through Jacksonville, Florida, stay on the interstate. Haley DeSantis, how are you doing? Says, was there any scary moments operating the crane? There absolutely has been some scary moments. One of them, people that are new to my channel, the video that starts auto playing is the one where I stacked out that 310 foot tall cell tower. And I had 43 feet of swing away jib on the end of 197 feet of main and got hit with 44-mile-an-hour winds. That's probably the scariest moment I've had in a crane. I thought it was going to break the boom off. So I swung away from the tower and just started high-speed retract. But I swung away from the tower, one, to get the wind to keep it from hitting me in the back. I got oriented where it was kind of hitting me, or to keep it from hitting me in the side, I got oriented where it hit me in the back. And then to get the boom away from the tower, because there was 3 guys on the tower. If that boom broke off, I did not want to take that tower out. I did not want to take those 3 guys down. Jeff McDonald, that's a good question. Says another cool live stream. I appreciate that. Is there any orientation with respect to the chassis truck frame that is better or worse, over the side, over the front, over the rear, etc.? The load charts are a 360-degree chart. So technically you can pick whatever's in the load chart and rotate 360 degrees around the carrier. Now, with that being said, it's physically capable of more over the rear or over one rear corner. Because actually I could draw you guys a picture on the old dry erase board. If you want me to draw like a kindergartner, I can do her. But Nathaniel Lee to the top crane, can you please a review of your... Are you talking about the die-cast cranes back here in the corner of the room? Andy B, cell tower. Absolutely. I do not like cell towers. And it's just one of those things. I don't like cell towers. And probably the reason why I don't like the cell towers is everything that you're doing is in a position you can't really see it because it's so high up. And it's, for the way you're configured, it's a lot of weight, really high up. And then the other is you're working literally inches from people in a situation that you can't really see them. So there's a lot of stress in cell towers. I think that's Crane L. Says, I used to work for Lee Bear Cranes as a tech. Do you think they should have more dealerships to service customers? You're a good crane man. You're right on the money. Well, I appreciate that. I don't know. It depends on how fast they can get a person to a crane. And that's one thing, like with Tadano. I had an issue a few years ago where we had to fly a person in, and I called them at 1 o'clock. I think it was 1 o'clock on a Wednesday, and they had a person on the ground and sitting in that crane by 10 o'clock the next morning. So that's pretty fast. Nathaniel Lee says, no, the real one. What do you want me to review on the real crane? I mean, I could literally do a 5-hour video on reviewing that 200-ton Tadano. Sean's Lawn Services just looked up. Yes, it was Y-gang setup is interesting to watch. Shut down I-10 for the whole night for a week straight, 4 beams a night set. So they were probably running like a max lift on those. That's why they had the rigging that they had set up and why they had the boom set up the way they did. So they were probably really close to capacity. Haley DeSantis says you have some big super fans in Brampton. Can you say hi? I can absolutely. I'll say hi. So hello to everybody in Brampton, and I'm not sure where that is, but I appreciate having fans. I never dreamed that this channel would turn into what it's turning into. It's humbling and mind-boggling all at the same time. It's neat to watch it grow. Every so often, I get a little bit of flack here and there from somebody, or I'll get, a knucklehead in a comment, and that kind of every time you get one of those, it kind of takes the wind out of your sails for a second. Then you just ignore it and move on. Oh, Haley DeSantis says Ontario, Canada. Alex Williamson's Blind Adventures. How are you doing, Alex? Glad to see you made it on here. Oh, Nathaniel Lee, how to set up the jib on the crane. I've got a video of that back in November. I showed almost step by step on swinging the jib on the 180G. Jake respects says Nathaniel Lee. I think just the fact that Jimmy prefers the Tadano 200 to any of the others says as much as any review. Mike Manfred, how are you doing? Tell Charles I said hello. But I do get that question a lot. Jake Risbeck threw that out there about preferring the Tadano. And I do get that question a lot. What cranes do I prefer? Do I prefer Tadano, Link Belt, Liebherr, Grove? And I've operated all of them. And don't get me wrong, they all make great machines. I do have more seat time in the Tadano than I do at any of the others. But here's a prime example. And I'll go back to that in just a second. Osman Ozturk, hello. He said hello from Turkey. Jeff Skews, hey, stopped in for a quick visit. Almost 7,000. You're doing good. Yeah, we're getting there. But to go back to that, as far as the example, our ATF 80-4, which is it's a 100 American ton capacity crane, developed a hydraulic leak on one of the holding valves on the telescope cylinder. I took a picture of that, and I'm actually friends with one of the Tadano techs on Facebook, and I took a picture of that part, sent it to him at 7:30 a.m. on Friday morning. And this guy is not even a Tadano service tech or parts person anymore. He is in charge of receiving cranes in the United States. As soon as a crane hits the ground in the United States, his crew sets it up, runs it through the paces before it ever gets to the customer. Make sure everything's good on it. But anyway, I sent this guy the picture of it. By 8:30 in the morning, he had already sent me a screenshot of where the part was located on the parts breakdown, the part number, and explained to me the procedure to install this piece. And that was strictly off of a picture sent to him on Facebook Messenger. So I'm friends with, or I'm following one of their parts guys on Instagram. I can send him a message on a weekend and he'll respond to it. And if it's crane related. So Tadano's service department is fantastic. Let's see. Sean's London service asks, from your experience, what is the weight of a bridge girder 80 feet plus? It depends on the height of it. Typically, the ones around here, they're about 3.5 feet tall, and they're about 96,000 pounds when they hit about 90 feet long. Haley DeSantis asks what my favorite crane model. It's not released yet, but the Tadano ATF 600G-8. Wayne Willis, I've run Grove. I've run some Lee Bear, and I've run link belt pickers. I've been in about all the different manufacturers' models of cranes. Josh Wellner, how are you doing? He said it's turning into what it is because of the type of person you are. Well, I appreciate that compliment, Josh. Haley DeSantis asked, why did you decide to start a crane channel? Actually, it was, I was prodded by a friend of mine, and he was on here earlier. I don't know if he's still watching, but Randy with G4 Outdoors is a good friend of mine. We've been friends for, close to 30 years. And he told me, he's like, you really need to start making videos of your job. And I kind of just blew it off for a while, and then he just stayed on me, and I did it. So there I am. Big Guns, how are you doing? Jake Respect, that's real knowledge and willingness to make sure users are good to go. Yeah, and that I can't say enough good stuff about Tadano's support. Toronto Terror, thoughts on the remote controlled tower cranes? I'm not a fan of any machine that's remote controlled like that, because you take away the operator's ability to feel what the machine's doing. Von Heels asks, when you have one end cribbed up or way up in the air, does it affect your capacity at all? Technically, it does not. As long as your cribbing's good, you use the right materials, you're not bridging the cribbing, and it's level. I mean, you can crib them up basically indefinitely as long as your crib stack holds together. But the higher you get, the more concern you start putting into your cribbing. And it's just another one of those things that sits in the back of your mind when you're making a pick is, hey, is all it going to stay stacked up? I'm going to try not to butcher this name either. Is it Niall Kirby? Says, hi from Ireland. How often do you need to re-reeve a crane for different applications? And how long does it take each time? Re-reeving happens fairly often because I adjust my reeving for the weight that I'm picking. If I'm picking light stuff, I typically stay 2 parts or less because it's fast. And then, if I have to change to pick something that's 60,000 pounds, then I'm going to have to put at least 4 parts of line in for 60,000. It doesn't take long. You just, with the boom retracted, you swing over, you boom down, you set the block on the ground, run a bunch of rope out, and start running it through the block. I've got a quick reef block, so that helps. I don't have to knock a becket off, and it doesn't take very long. Actually, I'll have to re-reeve tomorrow morning. I may try to get some footage of it for you guys if you guys want a video of it. I did a quick one a while back, but I can see if I can get one that's a little more in depth. Mike Manfred says, dang, 800-ton, dream big. Actually, the 600G-8 is a 660-ton, but it's a big crane. Let's see, the Mud Racer full says, happy late birthday. We share the same birthday. Got that spindle back in you took out a couple months ago. Which spindle? Trying to remember. All the jobs seem to run into one another. Haley DeSantis, do you have any other diecast models? Those are the only 2 that I've got so far. Niall Kirby said, great A1 on the name, too. I was hoping I didn't mess it up. Alex Williamson's Blind Adventures asks, what kind of crane do you typically use to put in a fiberglass pool? That's going to depend on how close to the hole you can get. We've set pools with stuff as small as a 17-ton boom truck. And, occasionally we'll set a pool with one of our 50-ton boom trucks. And if we really had to stretch out a ways and set one, I mean, I'm not opposed to setting a pool with the 200-ton. If it might be a situation where we got to be 200 feet from the hole. And at that point in time, I'd have to use the 200 ton. Jeff McDonald asks, how often do cranes need new rope? That depends on the operator. So if the operator isn't careful, that crane could need new rope very frequently. I'm very cautious with the rope on that crane because, one, it's expensive. There's 1,100 feet of it. And the other is that is your only connection between the load and the crane. So if you abuse it, you run the very real risk of dropping something, and either dropping something and destroying it, or dropping something and hurting or killing somebody. Von Hill says, some of your videos have shown very well that being a crane operator is not just pulling levers all day long. A good portion of your day is spent watching others work and getting ready for you. There's that. And there's a good portion of our time too is spent in prepping for the job or laying out what we need for the job. Jake Respect says, my feelings are the same as yours, Jimmy, even on things like motorcycles. For example, many of the newest bikes, throttle by wire, ABS braking, traction control, et cetera, et cetera. Josh Wellner, I have not worked on Thor's hammer at all. I will get back on it. The way it's looking now, it's probably going to be when work slows down a little bit before I can get back on it. Oh, Altec, the mud racer full. Altec. Okay. Yeah, that was a crazy deal. I didn't get any footage in there because, well, Altec won't let you record inside their facility, but we pulled a super expensive spindle out of a big horizontal CNC mill. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was the only spindle in the country. I think it was over $100,000, like 130 maybe. And they had to ship one in. And yeah, that was quite the job. No headroom, tight quarters. The mud racer full can tell you, we put machines inside of facilities that most people would walk away from and be like, there's no way you can get a machine in there. And we make it happen. Sometimes fractions of inches is what it takes, but we get it done. Jake Respects is plus, I'm most definitely an old school guy. Andy B asks, is the 600 a mobile crane? It is. It is an 8-axle carrier mobile crane. Bruce Russin, hi Jimmy from Mesa, Arizona. Question: does the ambient temperature you are operating in affect a given pick? It can, if it gets to either of the extremes, and I'd have to get the book out to know what it is on the high side. It's something crazy where we wouldn't be working anyway. 120 some degrees, I think. But minus 13 on the low side. If it's less than that, then the crane can't operate. Wayne Willis said, heard from anyone about the synthetic rope out there. Not sure if anyone is using it here in the States. I know a lot of the digger derrick trucks that linemen use, they have synthetic rope on them. As far as on the cranes, I have not seen any in the States yet. Not to say that Dyneema or synthetic rope's bad. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. Christy Bow, how are you doing? John Warren asked, what percentage of broken wires is considered for replace on the rope? So I went over that in one of the videos. It's 3 broken wires in one strand and one lay, or 6 broken wires, randomly distributed broken wires, and 1 rope lay. Believe I don't have that mixed up. And then it's different on your slings and all that fun stuff too. Josh Wellner, Winter Project sounds good. Anthony Ray, safety talks also take up time, but it's well worth the time. Absolutely. Everybody has to be on the same page when you're doing crane work. Bloomerd, I think I got that right. Do you want to retire running this crane, or would you like to move up to management or a larger crane? I'm perfectly content staying in that ATF 180 until I'm ready to hang up my work boots. Von Heels asks, how often do you unspool the winches to inspect the rope, and how much weight do you need for the winches to spool correctly? That's a good question. We typically don't unspool it. What we'll do is we'll reeve a bunch of parts of line and then run some boom out, and we can run all the rope off the drum by doing that and inspecting it. That doesn't happen every time the crane goes out. What does happen is the rope that's visible gets inspected, and typically the rope that's visible is what is going to be being used for that particular job. If it's kind of hard to explain it, but if you wrap that rope 5 layers deep and it's broken clear at the bottom, it's probably not going to go anywhere. Like if it's buried next to the spool and it's even broken in half down there, it's probably not going to go anywhere until you get to that point. So if you are actually within about 3 wraps of that point, but the rope that's visible before the pick is made is what gets inspected. And that rope, when I say I'm careful with that rope, I've actually made customers mad because of the situations I wouldn't put that rope in, like making them use a whole bunch of extra rigging. If they're going to get my rope close to something, I don't let it happen. So I've had customers actually kind of upset about the fact that I made them put together 60 feet of rigging so I could keep my rope out of harm's way. Let's see. Alex Williamson's Blind Adventures asks, how many axles has the double wheels on that 600 ton? On the 600 G-8, it's 8 axles with 1 tire at each axle end, and the tires are 4.5 feet tall or so, and then probably about 2 feet wide. And then it's going to depend on the boom dolly. Mike Manford says we use them digger derrick trucks and utility work, line work. Mud racer full, less than 6 months. You guys will be out there a lot installing 4 more of these machines in the new building. 2 will be in 50-inch deep pits. Yeah, and that's one that I'm going to have to take our 200 ton in and do some creative setup to set those. I think we've already been talking to Tadano about it, and we've got to do some unconventional practices to get the crane set up to be able to set those pieces in those pits. So it is definitely going to be interesting, and unfortunately, I can't record any of it. Bloomberg says, I assume we do have a CDL, and we typically don't go further than 150 miles. Occasionally, I mean, in the 2.5 years that I've been in that crane, we've been to Omaha once. Nathaniel Lee says, just found a new crane, the 2019 Tadano ATF 220. The ATF 220 is just the bigger version, a little bit bigger version of the crane that I operate. The crane I operate has the same carrier and the same superstructure. The only difference is the boom and counterweight package, I believe. Bloomberg, we do not have to put an E-log in it. Andy B does outside company. Yes, we have an outside company come in and do the crane annual inspections. You guys are asking some fantastic questions tonight. Some of them you're actually having to make me think. I'm not sure what all we've got coming up. I know I've got another house to set, and it's a pretty big one. It's 74, 76 feet long, and it's going to be a lot of rigging. So I'm sure we'll get some footage of that. I've got that transformer to do tomorrow. Then other than that, I'm not sure what we've got coming up. Von Heel's also something I was unsure of is how far you can reach out to grab your counterweights. Okay, so if I don't have any counterweights on the crane, if I'm grabbing my first counterweight, I can pick it from about 45 feet away. once I get that first counterweight on the crane, I can actually hang it on the back of the crane, and then I can go out about close to 60 feet and get the second and third weight, and even further to get my wing weights if I need to. Mr. Random, did you ever do a video how the counterweight attaches to the crane? I do have a video of that. It was a long time ago, last year, I guess. Jake Respect, thinking is usually my first mistake. Josh Wellner, E-log is a computerized logbook for the cranes. Hal Kirby, what's the best job? A crane operator. It's seriously uplifting. Yeah, my dad asked me, he's like, how's the crane business? I said, well, it has its ups and downs. How fun was your ride in that telehandler? That actually wasn't bad. I've been on wind farms operating a telehandler, and you're in that thing 12 to 18 hours a day, running full tilt like that through fields and everything else, just getting after it for 12 to 18 hours. So that 45-minute drive in and 45-minute drive out wasn't bad. Cranell, thank you for making a crane channel. I appreciate you guys watching it. It, like I said earlier, it blows my mind. Justin McKee, what do they inspect on the crane? They inspect absolutely everything. Welds, ring gear bolts, boom cylinder pins. They look for leaks, rope. They check the rope, engine leaks, air system leaks if it's got an air system. If it's on the crane, they inspect it. Cooper Mishu, how are you doing? Nathan Bertles, do you like bigger or smaller cranes? There's pros and cons to both. Smaller cranes are a lot less work to set up, and there is a little bit less responsibility with smaller cranes. I mean, it's still a crane, but you don't have 200 or 300 feet of boom in the air to worry about. And, but also with smaller cranes, you run into more situations where you're at max capacity a lot. So there's pros and cons to both of them. Cooper says, what's your opinion on the single cab all-terrain cranes? Like the RT cranes, the rough terrains? I mean, I like them. Sometimes they get in trouble because the people operating them, when you run down the road, they kind of turn over easy if you're not careful. But Andy B asks if all the counterweights are the same. The very first counterweight's different. It's actually a two-piece counterweight. And it's a smidgen heavier than the other ones. The second and third counterweights are pretty much identical, except for the notches in the third counterweight for the wing weights or the kidney weights to hang off the side of it. Null Tech says, howdy, my 114-foot roof pick went well Tuesday, 2 hours shut off street, done by noon. That's good. 114, was that 114-foot radius? Bloomer asks, what's the outlook like for crane operators? I'm sure they're either at the age of technology where they can be remote controlled or soon going to be. I don't look for that to really happen. I think as soon as you take the human element out of the machine or away from the machine, there's going to be a lot of them turning over. Even the remote controlled cranes where they're just standing off to the side operating them, they have issues. I think if a person gets into operating a crane right now, they're pretty safe for quite a while. Nathan Bertle says, I run ATF 220G-5, some but prefer 90-ton size. The scenery changes a bit more often. Hey, Matt Lee's in the house. How are you doing, Matt Lee? On the Tadano, are the tires a special purpose tire for cranes, or are they more of a construction tire like seen on the scraper? Also, how far do you get on those tires? It's all going to depend as far as the terrain you're running on. But if you look on the side of the tire, it's actually 4 mobile cranes. It's molded in the side that it's 4 mobile cranes. But it could also be used on a scraper. Bloomberg, what's the barrier to entry for the average Joe to buying a crane and working it? Sort of like the towing industry. The barrier is, one, the expense of the crane, and two, the expense of the insurance. Dennis 496 Stroker, how are you doing? And also, as far as just getting into crane work, you got to have work for it. So it's hard to break out into an area that's already got crane companies in it and start taking work from them. John Warren posted a link to the video of how the counterweights go on. Thanks for looking that up, John. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Is that Dax Get Daddy or something? I'm not sure, but May 7th, 2018 was when you did the setting of the counterweight video. Thanks for that. Von Heels, I have to admit, on the house video recently, I was starting to think that you probably could have stick built that second half of the house for less than the crane repair costs. CP Boy 100 says, hi, have you ever operated a tower crane before? I have not been in a tower crane, and I'm not going to run one. I didn't lose anything up there. I got no reason to be up there. Norm Barr, the largest mobile crane, or hydraulic mobile cranes, the Liebherr LTN 11200. Nathaniel Lee's, he said also find a P&H crane, so you must run a P&H as well. Noltec 75-foot radii, street to deck was 144, 30 feet overhead. That's a pretty good pick. Andy B, that's a good question. Is the pins that lock the sections together electric or air? Actually, they're put in place by hydraulic cylinders inside the boom. Niall Kirby, what's the most expensive mistake that I've made? I don't know. I typically am not one. Let me find something to knock on some wood. I'm typically not one to damage stuff. Random Elias, I don't get into politics on my channel. I have my own opinions, but I don't put them on my channel. Noel Tech, we were second on the job for the crane this day. John Z, corrosion protection on the crane, pretty good. Is there a separate inspection for corrosion issues? The corrosion protection is pretty good on a crane. It's covered in the annual inspection. If they find anything that's corroded, heavily corroded, rusted, it gets called out on the annual inspections. Who for me, should you like John Deere or Case IH? I know it's a weird question, but I'm curious. Case IH for me. I hate to upset any John Deere people out there, but when it comes to tractors, that red paint is much cheaper than the green. King 2042 has having your YouTube channel generated a business for you that you know of. I think we've gotten some calls from like Texas wanting us to come do some stuff once they find out where we're at. They're like, that might be a little too far to drive. But I'm not sure. I would like to think that it has. I'd like to think that my channel's, I say my, but it's not really my channel. It's everybody's channel. But I'd like to say that it's generated some business for Tadano as well. SKA, Tadano, Liebherr, and Grove, which one is the best? It's like Ford, Chevy, and Dodge. Which one is the best? I mean, they'll all cart you down the road. It's which one do you want to drive? But I'm partial to Tadano because of the service that we get from them, and they build a great machine. Tired old mechanic. There are tower cranes. They operate from the ground with remote. I've seen them, and I'm not sure that I'm a fan. I don't know. Time will tell. We'll see how the technology does with that stuff. David Campbell, Australia, love your channel. Have a great day. Thanks for that. Rails 19. Tractors are red, crops are green. Norm Bar, is there a wind limit for safe crane operation? There absolutely is. So on main boom, depending on boom length, from 0 to 25 miles an hour, I've got full capacity. From 25 to 27, I've got to reduce to 30% capacity. No, 50% capacity. From 25 to 27 is 50% capacity. 27 to 33 or 34 miles an hour is 30% capacity. Anything over 34, and I have to put the crane up. If I have the jib on, the wind limit is 15.9 miles per hour. Von Hills, anytime I see something heavy in the air, you will not see me anywhere remotely nearby, no matter how over-rigged it is. It is stressful, and if any of you guys haven't watched that Transformer video yet, that is kind of a stressful pick to be put in when you have 77,000 pounds almost over your cab, about 30 feet in the air. John Warren, Jimmy, you're good. CIH is all we run on the farm. Billy Laptop, thanks for that, buddy. Cooper Mishu asks, do you live in the city or country? Would you rather live in the city or the country? I've lived in both. Right now, we're kind of in between. We're kind of in the suburb area of a city, but all the houses in our neighborhood have a minimum of 1.5 acres. So the houses aren't too close together. Where we moved from, our closest neighbor was 1/2 mile away. And there's pros and cons to that. I like being able to drive 5 minutes and pick something up at the store if I need to. And I definitely don't miss living on gravel road. SKA says I own a Tadano and they are pretty solid. They are great machines. Noltec, all the cranes in the Boston are double booked each day. Said although he got his job done for the day, leaving town for the highway, got pulled over by Massachusetts DOT. That wouldn't be fun. Alex Williamson's Blind Adventure said, did you see my comment I made in your most recent video about the man baskets? I have not yet. It's hard to keep up with all of that. It's hard to keep up with all the comments that come in. And I try really hard for the first 24 hours. And then after that, it's solely dependent on what I have going on, if I can reply to the comments. Baba Bong says, cool video. Thanks for that. On heels, imagine how much the load catches the wind affects your safe working wind speeds. It not only that, but it really catches the boom. That boom catches a lot of wind. People don't realize how big the boom is on that crane, and John Warren got to see it in person. That boom's pretty sizable, so it catches a lot of wind. Haley DeSantis asked, why did I pick cranes? Why not other equipment? I do operate other equipment from time to time. And I've got some footage of me almost abusing one of our backhoes. Just running it as fast as it would run, trying to get dirt pulled out of a hole. And I may make that the next video. I don't know. What do you guys think? You guys want to see footage of me running a 4-stick Case 580 Super L, just almost beating on it? Because I've got about 30 minutes of footage of it. But I do operate skid loaders, dozers. I'm not a fan of scrapers. I've got a little bit of seat time in a motor grader. I'm not the best with one, but I can make it happen. But cranes is one of those things that have always intrigued me, and it's a challenge every day. I mean, especially in crane rental, it's always a different challenge. You always got to use your brain and work through the challenges of it. So. Norm Barr asked, was it the wind that caused the Oklahoma crane accident when they were placing the roof section on the stadium? I don't think that was in Oklahoma, unless it was a different one, but Von Hill says, sure, we will watch anything you post. Well, I appreciate that. King 2042 scrapers or backbreakers. Okay, I'll throw together the backhoe video and we'll throw it out there. Don't critique me, but that old 580 is a little sloppy. And I operated about once a year, maybe. Sometimes less frequently than that. Mr. Random, yes, sir, as an old boss said, if you're not beating it, you're not working it. Hard to hear as his mechanic. Absolutely. There, John Warren says the crane is big. The camera does it no justice. Now, Kirby, the certifications I have are for telescopic cranes. And I have to renew them every 5 years. Von Heels will just bring Let's Dig over here and tell you how to do it. I don't think Let's Dig can operate a 4-stick hoe. So I'm not sure he would be coming over here and telling me how to do it right. And I've got a lot of experience in a 4-stick hoe. Some of the people that have been on my live streams before know that I used to work for a company called Herzog Contracting, and I used to run a machine called a car topper. And you can find it on YouTube. There's videos of car toppers on YouTube. It's just a modified 4-stick backhoe that you climb on top of a train and unload rail cars with it. And I did that off and on for a couple years right after high school. So I've got a lot of seat time in a 4-stick backhoe. Andy B, 580, 4-sticks, what I started on. Basically, I'm guessing you're saying thank God for joysticks. I'm actually better with a 4-stick backhoe than I am with one with joysticks in it. Chris Dubois says to let you know that I'm moving too. Chris Dubois must be moving. Cooper Mishu, in your opinion, is cat, case, or deer better in construction equipment? That's a tough one. It depends on what equipment you're really looking at. I'm a fan of cat and deer hose more than I am case. The old case 1845s were tough machines, and there's a lot of them still out there burning fuel. So you can't count case out on a skid loader. Really anymore, they all use pretty similar technology. Again, that's like a Ford, Chevy, and Dodge deal. They're all going to move you down the road. It's which one do you want to put your butt in? King 2042 says, let's dig is stuffed with a deer pattern, never mind a 4-stick. Dean Shaw says, what are the regulations concerning crane inspections in your area? They have to get an annual inspection where they go front to back, top to bottom, inside and out. Very, very, very thorough inspections annually. And they get a monthly inspection on a lot of the other gear, winches, ropes, stuff like that. And then a daily inspection on all of your basically day-to-day stuff that's getting used. Your rope gets a daily inspection, your block, hook, ball. I do a visual inspection of ring gear bolts, the ring gear tooth pattern, outriggers. Basically everything I'm going to touch, look at, and use gets looked at daily. Von Heels, it had to be a cat 4-stick pattern for him just to run it. Matt Lee, choose wisely, Jimmy. Matt Lee's a cat mechanic, so that's why he said to choose wisely. And back up to old Billy Laptop, if I'm not mistaken, you, I think, were the one that threw in on Super Chat last live stream I was on. So I appreciate you very much doing that stuff. It's not something you guys have to do. I'm just blown away by it. Cooper Michu, I'm going to John Deere Davenport Works, which makes construction force equipment. Oh, for a gold key tour. That'll be a neat tour. Mud race, or have you ever had to replace any rotation bearing bolts? Not on either of the Tadanos, and not on any of our cranes, but I have had to replace some on, what were they? Oh, on a Broderson. I've had to replace some bolts that were broken on the ring gear on a Broderson or on the turntable. Tired Old Mechanic says the big blue crane collapse was in Milwaukee. Chicago is called the Windy City. Milwaukee is every bit as windy. I don't know how they thought they could get 4 hours without the wind to put it in place. Yeah, I knew it was up north somewhere, and that was absolutely because of wind. Alex Williamson, Blind Adventure, said he was going to Target the other day with his mom and saw some digger derricks working on some lines. Now, Kirby, how much would it cost for you to pick up my neighbor's house and move it further away? Where'd you say you were again? Because that might be pretty expensive. Matt Lee, they're all good machines. The service and support is where it is anymore. Kind of like Tadano cranes. The machines are great. Service is where it's at. And I agree 100% with that. And I'm one of those people that if a person's asking what they should buy, like if someone's legitimately wanting to buy something, my first question is, how close is your support? So if you're in an area that has a Caterpillar dealership right next door or close by, but your local John Deere dealer is an hour and a half away, I would absolutely buy a Cat over the John Deere, just for the simple fact that you have support nearby. Machines are machines, and they're going to break down at some point. It's how quick can you get them back and going? Because if they're not moving, they're not making money. Cecil McKinley asked if I've ever operated a drag line. I have not. I've seen people do it, and there's definitely an art to it. And my hats off to those guys that do it. Now, Kirby, Ireland would still be worth it. It's funny. My wife wants to go to Ireland next year. So who knows? I may be over there. If you can line up a crane, we could probably move your neighbor's house. Alex says only one of the 4 trucks was working. My question was, why didn't they just hire a small crane to come in there? If they own the machines, it's probably cheaper for them to do it themselves. Cranes can get expensive. Andy B, good fences make good neighbors. Von Heels, in all seriousness, though, what was the failure point in your opinion on that house lift? Since it was a modular home in the first place, it was made to be picked up, correct? It actually was made to be picked up by a crane. They probably shouldn't have put the straps right underneath the door jamb, but who am I to tell them yay or nay? And they're being next to a door, there was probably some water damage in that area, and that's what could have done it. But typically, when the house is being picked, they don't put the straps under a door threshold or under a door. You want to try to keep your straps away from the doors. Christy Bland, who used to run a 75-ton rotator wrecker. That's a pretty big rotator. Billy Laptop, I love your channel. You're a straight talker and tell it like it is. I always learn from your content. Well, I appreciate that, Billy, and I appreciate the super chat. Alex Williamson's Blind Adventures. EMs that are just sitting there burning fuel. It depends on the situation. I mean, if they own all 4 of those trucks and 3 of them are burning fuel and those guys are on payroll anyway, it's probably still cheaper than bringing a crane in. J. Chris Beck, support is basically the foremost thing in my mind, no matter what I'm using or buying, new or used. If you don't have support for something, there's no point in even really buying it, because if it does break, or when it does break, you either got to make it up as you go along and fix it, or try to find someone that knows how. Nerm asks how long the house was there before we lifted it. I'm not sure. For some reason, 14 years sticks in my head, but I'm not 100% certain. But I'm thinking it was right around 14 years. And there was stuff in that video, or there was stuff on that job that didn't make it to video. There was kind of a discussion between the house moving crew and myself, or my crew, which is just two of us. But um, the house moving crew was wanting us to be responsible for any damage, and it doesn't work that way. They're the ones rigging it, and actually they wanted us to rig it, and we don't do that unless they hire us as a rigger. If they hire us to have riggers on site, then we will accept some of that responsibility, because our riggers are the one placing the straps and whatnot. But on that particular job, it was myself and my oiler, which is basically my assistant. We had no riggers on site, so it was up to them to rig the house. As soon as they got the rigging on the house, they wanted us to be responsible for any damage. And I told them, I said, no, it doesn't work that way. I'm only here to pick it up and set it down. Now, if the crane turned over and dropped the house, that would be on us. If the cable broke and dropped or the rope broke and dropped the house, that would be on us. If I swung it into a tree and damaged it, that would be on us. But they want us to be responsible for any damage caused by the rigging and anything. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. The house moving crew actually called my boss and was having a discussion with him about it, and they were arguing back and forth. And finally, I just said out loud, hey, Caleb, go get the truck and we'll take the crane home. You know, I have no problem breaking a crane down and leaving if that's what it takes, to not be responsible for something that is not our responsibility. But that's why in the video you guys heard me say it's been eventful. That's why it was eventful. Sorry for the rant there, or rambling on. But NERM, no wall equals no wall. I'm not understanding that. NERM says, oh, under a door is not good. Baba Bong, and why were we moving the house? That's a good question, and I had some people ask me that. That house was put on a family farm, and their family had outgrown the existing house. Well, they couldn't sell the house on the property because it was part of their family farm. They didn't want to do that. So being a modular, they decided to sell the house, and under the pretenses that they were going to pay to have it picked off the foundation, and from there it was up to the new buyers. But so that's what they did. The homeowners hired us to come in and lift the house. They hired the house crew to come in and rig it and get it prepared for transport and to move it. And once we moved the house off the foundation, the next day they came in and started building a new house on that existing foundation. I think they built a 2-story. I'm not sure, how many bedrooms or any of that stuff, but basically the family outgrew the existing house, and the existing house was on a family farm. Dean Shaw asks, have you ever operated a Liebherr crane? Nice cranes, but expensive to repair. All cranes are expensive to repair. To give you guys an example, that holding valve that's leaking on our ATF 80-4, it's a piece that's about this big around, and the outer portion that you can see is about this long, and then it's going to have a stem on it that's going to be about that long as well. It's $3,600. So $3,600. and it's the holding valve for the telescope cylinder on the retract side. So it's a very important piece. There's no monkeying with it. You don't rebuild them, you replace them. They're assembled and then set to a certain pressure at the factory, and if one of them starts leaking, you take it out and you replace it, because there's a lot of responsibility in that little holding valve. Norm Barr, the accident I was talking about was in Seattle in 2012. Riggers took out 6 of the bolts expecting to break it down, but the wind picked up. Oh, actually, the Seattle crane that just went over was just recently. They took pins out to break it down faster, and the wind turned it over. Matt Lee said, I'm surprised there was no truck or trailer on site to be ready to load the house up. Seems to be a waste of time to go through the trouble and relift it later. We actually just set on blocks, and then they jacked it up. It still had the metal frame under it, the transport frame. And so we set it on blocks. The house moving crew came in the next day, jacked it up and put axles under it, bolted a tongue on it. I think they pulled them out of there. Woofy W says he's going to do some research on that one. He lives 30 miles north of Seattle and doesn't recall it. Matt Lee must come in a yellow box. I don't know what box it comes in, but it better come in a manufactured, maybe finished wooden crate for what it costs. It's ridiculous. Oh, Alex Williamson's Blind Adventure says, so do you think you could describe the dimensions a little better to me, please? That way I can get an idea just how big it is. And for those that don't know, Alex Williamson's Blind Adventures is, as far as I know, my only blind subscriber. So he listens to my videos. And that's why I've pretty much cut music out. And I try not to fast forward through a bunch of stuff. That way he can enjoy the videos as much as everybody else. But to give you an idea how big that piece is, Alex, if you go into your kitchen and grab a can of Campbell's soup, that would be the dimensions of this piece. Pretty close to. Or a can of pop, can of Coke. We say pop in the Midwest. I guess it's soda everywhere else, but Woofy W solid gold box. It better be a solid gold box that doesn't have to be returned. Oh, I thought that was pretty expensive. But while I had Tadano parts on the phone, just out of curiosity, I said, hey, how much is the telescope cylinder in its entirety? How much would that cost? I'll let you guys take a stab at that if you want to throw some comments in of how much you think the telescope cylinder for a Tadano ATF 80-4 costs. Tired old mechanic. I know a guy who sold a house to be moved to 2 different buyers. Neither of them showed up after paying before he ended up burning it. But if anybody wants to guess on that, the dimensions on that telescope cylinder, I'm wanting to say it's going to be about 25 feet long, 30 feet long, retracted. Oh yeah, you guys are nowhere near. NERM's over by a ways, but Nile's closer. It's $120,000 cylinder. Haley DeSantis was real close. King 2042. Well, you're still alive, so you didn't buy one. Yeah, I did not buy one of those cylinders. I made sure I told that guy from Tadano, I'm like, do not put that cylinder on that PO for those other parts. Yeah, Matt Lee says, oh Lord, big numbers. I've seen what that excavator cylinders cost. But yeah, the cylinder inside the boom that extends the boom sections and pins them in place on the ATF 80-4 is $120,000. Now, I can't imagine what one would cost for the ATF 180 that I operate, or like the ATF 600. It's insane. Dean Shaw, is it going to be a big procedure to install it? It should be pretty straightforward. It should just be a matter of booming up to about 78 to 79 degrees, retracting the telescope cylinder all the way, and pulling one out and putting one in. So it should be pretty straightforward. J. Chris Beck, the distributor kept for 1960 Mercedes 300 SL is now more than $2,500. Every time one is sold, the price goes way up. Mr. Random, that's a pretty good point. This must be like the marine industry or emergency equipment industry. If it says marine, emergency, or crane, add $3,000 to the tag. It's mind blowing what some of that stuff costs, and I know some of it is just because of the liability involved. But Andy B says, "Can you say what a new 200 costs?" I think the ATF 180G-5, which is the 200 American ton capacity that I operate. They don't make it anymore. They only made it for a short period of time because it was kind of in a gray area. They had the ATF 160 on one side of it and the ATF 200 on the other, and both of those were selling pretty good. And the ATF 180, they didn't really sell a lot of them, so they kind of took it out of their lineup. But new, it was probably around 1.6 million. Matt Lee says, I take it the cylinder is not rebuildable. Actually, the telescope cylinder is rebuildable. There's a company out in Pennsylvania that does them, and I think there's a few others around that do them. You can buy a rebuild kit for them for about $1,500. That's all the seals. It takes a pretty serious shop to rebuild it because of its size, but the biggest thing is the responsibility involved. Blah, blah, blah. So it's going to be some crane on crane crime going on. Christy Bland or tow truck. Yes, tow truck stuff's expensive. Von Hills, you can't run a crane company profitably with one crane. I imagine you have to have a second one to work on the first one. It's crazy. If you go back to one of my videos last year, we used our two 50-ton boom trucks to pull the boom sections out of our ATF 80-4, literally to replace, and I'm not exaggerating, we replaced $2 worth of O-rings. It took us 2 days and two boom trucks to replace $2 worth of O-rings. Rando E, just for fun, how long would it take your shop to replace the telescoping cylinder? If we had a cylinder sitting there, we could do it in a day. And really, with the way those booms come apart, the person could probably do it in less than an 8-hour day. You just have to have the machinery to do it. And it's 496 stroker, kind of like buying John Deere parts. That's a fact. J. Chris Beck. Mud Racer, how old is the Tadano? It is the ATF 180 is, I think, a 2013. And then the ATF 80-4, I think, is a 2007, I think. Tired old mechanic. If you buy the crane by parts, it would cost $5 million. That's a fact. And back in my high school days, I took auto mechanics in high school. There was actually a class for that. I was back when trades were invested in. But I took auto mechanics class in high school, and they had a parts breakdown in 1993, I think is when it was, of what it would cost to build a Ford Taurus if you bought all the parts through the parts department. And in 1993 or 4, a Ford Taurus probably wasn't more than about $15,000. But if you ordered every part and piece from the parts department, it would cost over $70,000 in 1994. Christy Bland said that crane cost a little more than the tow I drove. Dennis 496 Stroker says, by the way, hello from Raytown, my neighbor to the south. Art Hum, how many loads did you take today? How many loads of? Von Heel said, have you ever had to replace a boom section, or are they a matched set? I have not had to replace a boom section, and you can order individual sections. The way you match them to each other is through wear pad adjustment. Mr. Random, the Opticom traffic control systems we install LED emitters, 30 diodes that blink, and is the size of an iPhone. Is 2,500. But it's emergency, and the technology is 20 years old already. King 2042 says, if you've been to the Tadano factory, it'd be nice of them to offer you a tour as thanks for the advertising you give them. I have not been to the Tadano factory in Germany. At some point, I'm going to work on them for that. It's probably going to take a lot more subscribers than what I have now, but it would be neat to fly to Germany and go through their factory. And if they ever make that happen, I'm going to try to get them to let me record it. Matt Lee says they'll tell you the parts and service department is where the money comes from at a dealership, not so much the actual sale of the machine. And I can see that. I mean, I can see them heavily discounting a machine and expecting to make it all up in product support in the future. I mean, it makes sense. Mark your parts up 50 or 100%, and basically make your sale money back. I just put new ABS sensors in the old 80-4. What was that? A week or so ago, and completely forgot my cameras that day, so I didn't get to record that. But the cranes do actually have anti-lock brakes on them. But the transmission computer also uses the ABS sensors to determine what gears it needs to be in or what gear it needs to shift to next. So our ATF 80-4, we were having to drive it in manual mode where you had to shift it manually. And that was because one of the sensors was bad and the computer couldn't recognize what gear to be in. King 2042 told him Germany isn't too far from Ireland next year. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I would say if my channel grew to 200,000 subscribers, they might actually spring for a trip to Germany. I don't know. It's hard to say. I know some people from Tadano watch. You know, I know that some of them are watching some of the videos, and I get some feedback from some of them from time to time. Videos by Al in the 90s, Honda motorcycles had 10% profit. Parts was 50 and aftermarket parts were 100. That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. I'm in the wrong line of work. Evidently, I need to be selling motorcycles and motorcycle parts. JDS, that's a lot to say on your name, but I'm just going to go with JDS. So it says hello from Brewer, Maine. Well, hello from Missouri. That's another place that my wife wants me to go, is Maine. So at some point we'll probably make it to the Northeast. Says he loves the Tadano crane. I've got nothing bad to say about it, other than I wish they would have put about 1,000 horsepower in the engine in the lower, because the thing's slow. Matt Lee actually passed me the other day on 36 highway, and yeah, it gets kind of boring when you're on flat ground running 53, and then you get to a hill and it knocks you down to 25 or 30. And Von Heel said, my experience, if you always run a piece of equipment like you're the one that pays the bills for it, you will find you have a lot less headaches to deal with. I agree with that. Matt Lee, a new large crane will get you to Germany for sure. Hint to the boss man. I don't think we'll be buying any new ones for a while. Norm bar, is there a time amount on the cables on the crane? The replacement is dictated by wear and damage. So if you really take care of them and you don't tear them up, they last a really long time. Christy Blaine says, I hope to get to deliver a generator to your area. If you do, tell them to hire us to unload it. It'd be neat to load and unload some of you guys that are hauling stuff around the country if you make it to the area. Husey Tube asked a good question. If the motor died mid-pick, is there a way to lower the load back to the ground safely? There is a way to connect the hydraulic system from the carrier to the upper to get a load off the hook and retract it and get it stowed. John Warren said, take her in the fall so you can have fresh lobster. My wife doesn't like lobster, but I'll eat them. I'd eat my body weight in lobster if it was available. Dean Shaw, what training do you have to go through to get your crane license? It's just lots and lots of on-the-job training, and then lots and lots and lots of studying. Jake Risbeck said, I spent an entire winter house sitting a house on an island in Maine in the late 80s. Never ever again, nearly starved and froze to death. Matt Lee, he was screaming along at 50 miles per hour. I had to slow down to wave at him so he could see me. And I saw you wave, and I assumed it was you when I saw the Caterpillar on the side of the pickup. Andy B bought a Peterbilt 357 triaxle, watched it go down the assembly line. That was neat to see. That would be neat. Von Heels, that's a very good point. And I see crane companies that do it. They store their machines outside, and it's hard on parts. I don't understand it. We keep ours inside. And for example, there's a crane company not too far away. They've got a brand new 200-ton Liebherr. It was like, I don't know, the other side of $1.5 million, and it sits outside. I would build a building to put it in, or at least tarp it. JTTV, how are you doing? This is crane noob question. Was a clicking noise on the crane? It is a winch indicator that lets me know the winch is spinning and how fast. So it's a very helpful operational aid. It's more helpful when you can't see the load and when you're doing stuff a long ways away, but it's also helpful when you're doing stuff that's very precise, like just trying to move stuff a half an inch or a quarter of an inch. Tired Old Mechanic says, do you lube your cables? We use graphite lube, goes on wet and dries into a powder. We use Lubaboom products, and we use their spray cable lube. Baba Bahung, is oiler just a term for helper? The term oiler came about way back when with the old steam-driven cranes and whatnot, when stuff had to be oiled almost always. But the name stuck. It's just the job requirements have changed some. But yes, it's basically just the helper for the operator. And also typically the oiler is a person that wants to become an operator, so they're training. JDS says you and your wife would love Maine. I'll make it out there at some point. King 2042, the clicker is helpful to us when watching too. I've had some people complain about it and wanted me to turn it off, and I'm not going to turn it off just for the sake of people watching the video. It's one of those things I use, and to me it's kind of a safety thing. It lets me know that thing is running cable in or out. 45 nuts, higher use. His biggest killer on equipment is leaving it over winter outside. Agreed. Haley DeSantis asks, how many counterweights does your crane have? It has 5. So 3 slabs and 2 wing weights or kidney weights, for a total weight of 110,300 and some pounds. So total counterweight package when you enter it in the computer is 110,000. Baba Bong says loves that click. Rail and CJ, a lot of respect for you guys. Did a lot of signal and rigging at my previous job. Thanks for that. I mean, people look at crane operators and think, man, they're just sitting there and getting paid to pull levers. There is a lot more to it than that. JTTV, there's a lack of depth perception on film, so I like to hear it. And there really is a lack of depth perception, and it depends on the settings on the camera. I mean, if I don't get the camera set just right, a lot of times it looks like stuff's a lot further away than what it is in real life, and sometimes it looks a lot closer than what it is. But I don't know. That's the pros and cons of using a GoPro. But I use a GoPro because it's easy. I can stick it to the top glass, hit record, and I don't have to worry about it, so it doesn't distract me. I just sit there and talk to it like I'm talking to you guys now. And sometimes if you hear me getting quiet, it's because I'm really concentrating on what I'm doing. Not that I don't concentrate all the time, and not that I'm not paying attention, but if I get quiet in a video, it's because something's got me on edge, or something's got me in a position that I'm concerned about it. So know that. Like when I was in that generator or that transformer video, when I was swinging that big generator or big transformer up and over that switch gear, I didn't talk. And that's because I had 77,000 pounds almost above the cab, 30 feet in the air. So that's why I don't talk when things are a little sketchy. Dean Shaw says, do you know how many clicks equals a vertical distance? It depends on how many parts of line I'm running, but single part line, each click's going to be between 1/2 and 3/4 of an inch or so. And if I run 2 parts, it's going to be half of that. If I run 4 parts, it's going to be, each click would be, 1/8 to 1/4, roughly. Andy B, every click is a 50 in the bank. Joe Stewart, you know how to tell if a crane operator bought new tires for his truck. Baba Bong, it's all good. Just don't put it on that swing and stop block thingy. I experimented with that, and yeah, that's not a good place to have a camera. I figured that out after a few times. So I've found a better alternative is just sticking it on the block, and I need to do that some more. But it's also kind of a pain because this is I've got it sitting here. This is the camera that I use if I'm gonna stick it up on the tip of the boom. And let's see. Here's my little magnet mount that I use on it. But when I have this thing 100 feet away from me, my fancy GoPro remote that's supposed to control it doesn't control it very well. And it's a pain in the butt. So I don't do it very often. Really, the best time to do it is if I'm on a job where I can have someone where I can drop the block down, have someone run up, click the power button on and start recording, and just leave it on. Lost in time, what's clicking? Matt Lee, the transformer vid should be enough to prove that he makes his wages, folks. I was just watching the video and I could feel the tension. It might not be physical, but mentally I was worn out. And it's a combination of both. Crane operating is a combination of both, especially if you're in the crane rental. there's a lot of physical when you're getting the crane set up and tore down. And then there's a lot of mental involved when you're making the picks. I cherish those jobs where we can roll in on foot thick concrete, throw down some round pads or round mats, and the site's level, and you can be picking in 15 minutes or 20 minutes. But those don't happen very often. Rail and CJ, the crane we had, the previous job was a Manitowoc 999 with 180 main and 100 foot of jib. Can't remember the counterweight. Only could do 28,000 on one part of line. That's a pretty good single line pull. The 200 I operate single line pull on, it's 16,750. JTTV says, I hear a GoPro remotes work a tad bit better than phones over distance. So here's let me find it. This is the GoPro remote that I've got. It's a GoPro Smart remote, and supposedly it works from 600 feet away. I have determined that to be a lie. It would have to be 600 feet in basically RF insulated sealed tunnel where this had perfect line of sight directly to the camera with no other interference available, because I can put that camera on the end of the boom, have this connected to it, run 120 feet of boom out, and I can't control the camera. And at that point, it's only 120 feet away from me, basically in a straight line from this remote, and it won't control it. So that's pretty frustrating to spend $75 on a remote that doesn't work. Mitzvahs, go home, substation power plant, work, fun. Yeah. Cranes and electricity aren't friends. Matt Lee, not to mention the responsibility for the safety of the site. And I mean, I'm responsible for everybody's safety from the crane, but I'm not responsible for everybody's safety on the site as far as PPE and stuff like that. That's on them and the job site. When I roll into a site, I'm there to pick things up and set things down. Andy B said, it'd be neat to see the GoPro on the block. I've actually got a video on. When did I do that? I don't know. I was setting two anhydrous tanks side by side, and I've got the camera on the block on that one. I can't remember how far back that was. I don't even remember what it was titled. Von Hill says, from your videos, it seems like sometimes the hardest part of the job is finding some place to put the crane and support track. That is definitely true. A lot of times it's difficult to get the crane in a position to where you can pick the load, but also be able to set the crane up, with the support trucks and all of that. Mitzvah's going, years ago, I taped a walkie-talkie to the block so I could yell at riggers. That's funny. Scott Becker complained to GoPro about the remote. I really should. I should probably do a video just specifically about that remote. It wouldn't be crane related, but I should do a video just about that remote. King 2042 says, talking of remote, is the anemometer connected to the cab or hardwired? The anemometer is on the end of the boom, but it's plugged in, and it is hardwired through the cord reel on the side of the boom. So it's got its own leads. So it's not wireless. JTTV, do you check the ground soil before loading? I look at everything on a job site before I put that crane together, before I set it up. I look for power lines. I look at the ground. I look for manhole covers. I look for anything that looks like a depression. I ask questions. I'm pretty thorough on inspecting the site before the crane ever gets put together. Scott Becker, send it to GoPro via Twitter. I wonder if they would send me something different. Marcus Kobar, how are you doing? blah, 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 that transformer job, you had to put that crane in there with a shoehorn, or maybe that's what the oiler was supposed to be doing. No, I drive the crane and make the final decision on where to put it. And it was a tight fit. Alex Eganberger, do the GoPro review on the other channel, then smash it. That is a good idea. When I get the hammer done someday, that's what I'll do with that remote. I'll do a review on it, and then we'll drop that 1,500-pound hammer on it. Von Heel said, when I ran excavators, the quickest way to get my blood pressure up was to even think about walking under something I'd picked up. And I'm not a fan of that. And there are times that it is perfectly acceptable for a person to be under a load. Setting iron, building cell phone towers, flying trusses, framing, stuff like that. It's acceptable for people to be under the load. I've got footage on a house job that we did a couple months ago, and I just haven't edited the video yet and put it out there. We were setting a house on a basement, got the first half picked up, and I was swinging it over to the basement, and one of the guys on the crew trucked from one side of the house to the other, right underneath it. I only had that half a house about 4 feet off the ground, and he went from one side to the other without giving it a second thought, and I was livid. Needless to say, before we picked the second piece of the house, we had a discussion about it. And that guy's thought process was, well, everything was good enough to get it off the trailer. I figured it would be fine going to the basement. Well, just because it was good enough to get it off the trailer doesn't mean it's going to survive all the way to the hole. Now, I've got all the confidence in the world in the crane, and our rigging, we inspect it, but things happen. I mean, unforeseen things happen, and I was not a happy person. Oh, John Warren, he threw the video up of when I had that GoPro on the block. Thanks for that, John. Raylan CJ looks like he's heading out. Thanks for stopping in. Let's see. Oh, real. I thought you were. Oh, cover your assets. Gotcha. I thought you meant C as in leaving. I guess you're not leaving. Thanks for sticking around. It says on the truck crane with boom carrier, are they considered a Class A, Class B, CDL? I've got a Class A. I'm assuming they would consider it Class A because the boom dolly is basically a trailer, so it'd be a combination unit. Woofy W, as far as the hammer goes, good things come to those of us who wait. I would really like to get that thing done. I just have not had time to get it done. King 2042, they don't see it as a day in court for the people that don't get squished. Von Heels, I have respect for people that have no nerves to work in those environments with suspended loads and steel work and such, but I could not do it. Marcus Kobar, I have operated a crawler. I have not operated the tower crane, and I'm not going to get in a tower crane. Hats off to those guys that do it, and I know to them they say it's just another day in the office, but that's not for me. I didn't get this physique by climbing up a bunch of ladders. Mitzvah's Golems did a 7-story Holiday Inn, all precast concrete planks, dozens of trades under the load for a month, common on urban projects. Lost in Time 86, probably been asked before, but how'd you get started? A family thing? It's not a family thing. I'm first generation in my family to be doing this line of work. I'm not related to anybody at our shop, at our company. It's one of those things that interested me, and I pursued it. And I mean, when I say I pursued it pretty hard. It was a goal for me, and I went after it. Scott Becker says, I got to go soon myself. Have a good night. Thanks for stopping in, Scott. Haley DeSantis, why is your boom trailer 4-axle and not 2? It is articulated, and it has a pintle hitch hooked to the back of the carrier, and it's designed to carry a piece of counterweight on the back of it. So one slab of counterweight can fit on the back of the boom dolly. Matt Lee says, how many times do you go out and survey the work site before you bring the crane? Seems to me that you would be seeing the site before you show up. I would say about 35% of the time would be pretty accurate on how often I get to preview it before we go. And then I would say about 60% of the time, someone from our office goes and looks at it and then gives me sometimes inaccurate information, but we make it work. Ms. Host Golem says, check out the aspiring self-erecting tower crane in Europe. Cab is raised up. Huh. Art Hum, greetings from Bangkok. John Warren, who might be fluffy, but our fluff likes to keep both feet flat on the ground. I've got a washboard stomach. I just have a load of laundry on it. Von Heel said, I've seen anchors pull out of enough precast or pieces snap off when picking them. I would never trust them above me. That is a fact. Marcus Kobar, the ATF 180G-5 is the biggest crane that we have. That's the one that I operate. Art Hum says, hello, sir. Well, hello to you. Andy B says, thanks for the live stream and the videos. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody watching them. I know I say it a lot, but it truly is a humbling experience to put this kind of stuff out there and have so many people engaged in it. I know I'm not the best at editing and all of that, but you guys still continue to tune in and share it, and the channel's growing. I don't know how many subscribers the channel has now. Tired old mechanic, do you check Google Earth? Sometimes I do look at Google Earth for a job site. However, the stuff that's on Google Earth is a couple years old. So I've checked on Google Earth and then got out there and everything was completely different. Lost in Time 86. I ended my 6-pack workout when they canceled Baywatch. Woofy W. Smooshed fluff is not a good thing. Rail and CJ, a lot of your cranes have DEF tanks. The ATF 180 we've got is the only one, or the ATF 180 is the only one we have that's running DEF. Oh, Lost in Time 86 said 6.9, so I'm guessing just shy of 7,000 subscribers now. Marcus Cobars, I know this was probably asked what got me into the crane industry. I've been involved in heavy equipment ever since high school or right after high school. And the cranes I was kind of drawn to cranes. It was one of those things that got my attention. And in my mind, I had it that cranes were kind of the pinnacle of my trade. That's why I pursued it. Woofy W, I do my 6-pack workout 12 ounces at a time. Haley DeSantis, I do show some stuff other than cranes on my channel. I have some repair videos, some truck stuff, working on my truck. I'll throw that backhoe footage out there. Is there anything in particular you want to see? Or, I mean, you can, if you guys have a suggestion on something that you want to see, you can throw it in a comment or you can shoot me an email. You guys can reach me by email if you need to. That doesn't mean blow my email up for no reason, but That's my email address. So Haley, if you see something or if you think of something that you want me to throw into a video, shoot me an email and I'll try to make a video of it. Mitzvah's going this March Con Expo. Just bought tickets for Vegas. Go if you can. I am absolutely dead set on going to Con Expo next year. JTTV, have they released a report on the Google crane collapse? Not that I'm aware of yet, but I know what happened. I mean, they pulled the pins out prematurely and the wind blew it over. Lost in Time 86. I did tree work in college and we had a crane. We do some tree work with cranes around here. There's a lot of deciduous forest and deciduous trees in the area. There's a lot of big trees. So we do some tree work from time to time. My Beaver Dam 1, did you ever back away from a lift? I have only had one time in the time that I've been operating this Tadano that I've had to walk away from a lift, and that was because the crane was not big enough to handle it. We got incorrect information from the customer, and I got the crane out there, and it wasn't big enough to handle the job. But what I did for the customer is located the nearest crane company that had a crane that could handle it. And then I called that crane company for the customer and gave them all of the specs on the lift, like their radius, how much boom they would need, the load, and all of that. So they knew exactly what they had to mobilize to get the job done. So if I can't, I'm one of those people, if for some reason I wasn't able to do the job, I would do whatever I could to make sure that they got their job done. Jay Chris Beck, so glad to have day off tomorrow. Going to say goodbye and wish everybody a good night. It'll be smoothing pillow very soon. Thanks for stopping in, Chris. I appreciate it. I appreciate doing a good job moderating and being part of the channel. Alex Egenberger, there's 2 other YouTubers who are going to Con Expo. Yeah, if I've got to walk to Vegas, I'm going to Con Expo. Op engineer Chris, good evening, brother. Local 18, always enjoy the content and just caught this working on my abs watching To the Top Crane while eating ice cream. It's hot in Ohio. Good evening to you too. Working on his abs by watching me and eating ice cream. It's been hot here too. Today I think's been decent. I think 83 degrees. Mitzvah Golem, you need a week to see Con Expo. Stay outside Vegas City, take an Uber. Yeah, I've been out to Vegas before after Uber started, and Uber is definitely the way to travel around Vegas. But yeah, I will go to Con Expo if I have to walk there. Lester Thompson, how are you doing? Said, hey man, just had a couple minutes. Just wanted to check in. I'm sure I missed a lot of quality content. Life is good when you're busy. I might be back if things work out. If you don't make it back, no worries. Thanks for popping in and saying hi. Oh, Jay Chris Beck. Hey, before I go, I would like to see everyone hit that like button, please. Thanks for that, Chris. Mitzvahs go home taxi and hotel scam people, get a motel outside city limits. I actually had a subscriber offer a place to stay out there in Vegas, so I'm going to be talking to them here pretty soon. He may be watching. I'm not sure. I haven't seen him comment, but he may be watching. But Senseless Fabrication is one that offered me a place to stay out there. He lives in Vegas. And I think tickets are $150 a piece. It'd be pretty cool if Tadano just sent me some and said, hey, go enjoy yourself. But we'll see. Matt Lee done hit the like button. Oh, about 10 of you hit it all at once, it looks like. 11. Well, it is 1 minute after 8. Oh, Haley DeSantis, have I been to Canada? When I was a kid, we went to Niagara Falls, and we went to the Canada side or Canadian side of Niagara Falls. Does that count? I mean, I guess I've been a couple 100 feet into Canada, and that's it. But I would like to make a trip up there sometime. Dickered with Dave is up there. I'd like to meet Dave. We've got a few other good subscribers up there. That Chris with Construction Cronies. I would like to shake Chris's hand sometime. So I would like to make my way up there at some point. Yes, technically I've been to Canada. I've barely been to Canada. But I would go. There's not many other places that I would go to that's outside the country, but I would go to Canada. And it sounds like I'm going to get stuck going to Ireland next year, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. And I don't mean any disrespect in that. I don't say by being stuck. I'm really not looking forward to being on an airplane for that long. I don't know how long it takes, but not looking forward to flying over the Atlantic Ocean. I've got this phobia of the ocean. I don't know what it stems from, but I don't like it. But so Andy B said, have a good night, everybody. Thanks, Jimmy. And it's a little bit after 8. I'm going to be shutting this thing down here pretty quick. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I think this may have been my highest watched live stream, or second highest. I think my highest watched live stream so far was with Ron Pratt. I think this has been my second highest as far as subscriber count watching, or people watching. And you guys always amaze me and humble me. And I appreciate everybody's interaction and sharing the videos and telling people about it, and subscribing, and all the support. So with that, oh, Haley DeSantis said I subscribed. Well, thanks for that. But with that, everybody have a wonderful and safe week. I'm not sure what footage I'll throw out next. Probably that backhoe. You guys all thumbs up that, so probably do the old backhoe footage. Matt Lee, if you ever want to hang out sometime, shoot me an email, and we'll go grab something to eat or something. Haley DeSantis, I have merch on Teespring, but it's kind of hard to find it. I'll shoot you an email. Oh, Woofy W said I'm back. Woofy W, I'm getting ready to shut it down, buddy. Meadowview Lawn Care. Sorry you missed it. You can rewatch it. So anyway, everybody have a safe week. I appreciate all the support. Tell all your friends. You guys are definitely helping this channel grow, and I appreciate it. So with that, To the Top Crane is out.